Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us here at KAKM for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the chart here, the warning and advisory, no warnings or watches, but we do have winter weather advisories out for the Yukon Delta for northeast winds, 45 miles an hour, 1 to 3 inches of snow, and the snow with the wind will reduce visibilities to less than a half a mile at times, and that's out for overnight tonight. And there's also a winter weather advisory for St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast, northeast winds gusting to 55 miles an hour, looking for 2 to 4 inches of snow there tonight. And of course the wind combined with the snow, that'll reduce visibilities down to under half a mile. And moving on to satellite imagery of the from yesterday, we had a lot of clouds, continuation of the pattern we've seen, lows tracking northwestward here into the Bering Sea. We had the other one pulling back to the northwest there, taking the snow with it, and clouds spreading in over the interior. Otherwise, some breaks out here along the west, down into the Alaska Peninsula area, and also Seward Peninsula and through the interior. Not a bad day. Today, though, most of that moisture is lifted northward, so it was breaking out here for Kodiak into Bristol Bay, and not a bad day across the Kenai Peninsula. And then we had that front edging in toward the southeast coast, so rain and gusty winds occurring there with more of a showery condition back to the west, Cordova into Prince William Sound, with Valdez getting some rain, some snow working into the southeast interior areas with up to about an inch on the southern slopes of the eastern Alaska Range or the northern mountains of the Copper River Basin. And otherwise, kind of a trough right through this area along that cloud band there. So there was some light snow and flurries from the northern Seward Peninsula on back to the east here over toward Eagle and into the southern upper Yukon Valley. And those areas, then a break in between, and some clear skies up along the north slope, and then back into that low cloud, patchy fog condition there along the eastern Arctic coast. Wind still a little brisk here on the western coastal areas, Point Lay to Cape Lisburne and Point Hope, 15 to 30, 35 miles an hour with the winds there, less of that down across the Seward Peninsula. And then we have this low tracking northwestward there right near Kuskokwim Bay this afternoon. That produced an area of snow back to the northwest across the Yukon Delta, Kuskokwim Delta, and that's what's prompted those winter weather advisories for tonight and extending up actually now across St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, showery conditions over Bristol Bay and into the southwest interior. We had a few showers scattered around Prince William Sound, the Kenai Peninsula areas, and mostly away from Kodiak Island this afternoon. And here's that front that pushed the rain and gusty winds as high as 50 miles an hour in the gusts in the exposed areas of the outer coastline there, with gales throughout the day today. Rainfall amounts down that way approximately or around 1.25 inches at Elfin Cove to 1.33 inches down at Heidelberg. And by contrast, Juneau had about 0.4 inches of rain. And then lighter amounts back to the west, and Bristol Bay areas seeing about 1/4 inch there, actually from the southern Kenai Peninsula back across Bristol Bay, 1/4 inch of rain. And fair skies over the Pribilof Islands, light winds as well, and that extended down into the Adak and Atka area and back over to the Alaska Peninsula, and then way out here to the west, the next system, which brought gale force winds east-southeasterlies 40 knots today with snow moving into the Shimia area. And for tonight, that'll extend eastward and approach and move into the central Aleutian areas, more affecting Adak than Atka, with winds and precipitation at least starting out as snow, and it may or may not switch over to rain or mix with rain there tonight. And then just some isolated snow showers to the peninsula eastern Aleutian areas, staying fair over the Pribilofs. And then this low up over the Yukon Delta now, that's going to keep a chance of snow from northwest Bristol Bay right along the coast up to where that winter weather advisory is in effect there for St. Lawrence Island, back to the northwest coast. Kind of a couple of bands of showers or light snow, one shifting up across the northwest interior, and another one here with some showers from the western Alaska Range right up into Norton Sound, with isolated rain and snow showers here over the Kenai Peninsula, maybe south central Alaska, and chance of snow here over the Copper River Basin northeastward across the eastern interior areas, with showers for the North Gulf Coast, scattered showers for the Panhandle. That front washes out, conditions improve, and the next rain batch here sliding northward associated with that front down to the south, crossing Dixon Entrance, maybe reaching Heidelberg over toward Annette late tonight. Otherwise fair, Kodiak Island up into the southwest. And for tomorrow, gusty winds and rain again, heaviest on the south side, to a lesser extent up to the north. It looks like precipitation all the way up into the Haines-Skagway area. Tomorrow, maybe as far west as Yakutat. Otherwise, we have this trough developing here over the southeast interior from the Gulf of Alaska right across Prince William Sound. So snow showers will be on the increase throughout the day for northern Cook Inlet, as well as the Kenai Peninsula, kind of a mixed condition there, and into the Copper River Basin. Next extends back to the northwest across the Kobuk Valley out to about Kivalina. Scattered showers here across the Seward Peninsula areas, becoming a little more showery or discontinuous or less continuous there for St. Lawrence Island. So snow advisories will end, winds will diminish as well. Still a little gusty up there along the west side of the Arctic coast down to, about probably Point Hope. Again, could see gusts of 35, maybe even 40 miles an hour there. Areas of low clouds and fog on the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, higher pressure right through here, so looking for partly sunny skies over Bristol Bay with just some scattered clouds all the way up into the central interior areas. Isolated showers over the southeast Bering Sea, and again, the precipitation with this front as it elongates eastward towards Nikolsky in the afternoon may or may not switch over to rain. Definitely not a big push of warm air coming up with this frontal system at all, but gale force winds will be into the central Aleutians or west central Aleutians for Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we'll see that front continues to slide eastward here right across the Fox Islands for a chance of precipitation there, but not much in the way of wind with that. And again, winds remain light here over much of the Bering Sea, southeast Bering. South to north flow here, scattered snow showers from Kuskokwim Bay right up into the Gulliv and White Mountain areas. And even a chance of snow showers up there with this low center weakening into a trough and shifting back to the west. So that's going to make the winds a little more variable and lighter from the Bering Strait down across St. Lawrence Island. Then we have this trough coming eastward, and it looks like tomorrow night will spread snow into Cook Inlet area and definitely the Susitna Valley. And late tomorrow night, early on Wednesday morning, it'll actually be to the west, and then Wednesday afternoon, it starts to track back to the east. So the snow showers, or the chance of snow, will increase again Wednesday afternoon. And again, that staying a mixed condition there for Seward into possibly Prince William Sound. Should be scattered rain and snow showers over the northern southeast coast. That low slowly moving northward and weakening here off the Panhandle, but another trough develops now, bring another round of gusty winds and some heavier rain into the southern areas, but it won't be all that heavy. And no change up there over the north slope in the Arctic coast, mostly clear skies, upper Yukon Valley, so temperatures staying well below zero up in that area, but fair skies here over the southwest, down into Bristol Bay, just variably cloudy with light winds. Another nice day for Kodiak Island, as well as the Alaska Peninsula. For temperatures this afternoon, mid-40s again over much of the central and southern panhandle. Sitka, once again, the warm spot in the state today with 49 degrees, 37 in Juneau, 40 at Yakutat and Cordova, while Palmer, Talkeetna, and Valdez all had 34, 13 degrees in Gulkana, Northway, cool 6 degrees with 19 at Fairbanks, 11 degrees and snow at Tanana, and up to the north, Bettles at -1, 1 above at Fort Yukon, and Umia at the cold spot this afternoon with -30, 18 below at Arctic Village, and a little below zero here along the central and eastern Arctic coast, but Point Lay 11 below, 2 above over at Cape Lisburne, lower 20s for Kotzebue Sound, and temperatures ranged here for the Seward Peninsula 21 at Teller to 19 at Nome. McGrath just had 9 degrees this afternoon, but down Sparravon up to 42. And then there's a 23 at St. Mary's, 25 in Bethel, Unalakleet at 21, and mid to upper 20s out along the southwest coast. With the Pribilofs, again, lower to mid 30s after coming up from overnight lows in the mid-teens this morning with the light winds and clear skies. Nikolsky, 31 degrees this afternoon, 30s for the Alaska Peninsula right up into Bristol Bay. Kodiak had 38, upper 20s to lower 30s out over the western and central Aleutians. For lows tonight, again, well below zero, upper Yukon Valley, back across the North Slope and the Arctic coast, above zero here over the northwest interior, and 20s here covering the southwest part of the state all the way down to the Alaska Peninsula, 20s lower 30s for the Aleutians, and for the southeast coast not much change there, 30s to lower 40s for the lows, and then highs tomorrow back into the upper 30s to mid 40s for that area, with highs mostly in the mid 30s, again above freezing across much of south central Alaska down to Kodiak Island, but cooler though here over Bristol Bay, upper 20s to lower 30s now, and that extends right up to the Yukon Delta coast, mid 20s for the Seward Peninsula on the south side, below zero for much of just about all of the North Slope from the Brooks Range right on out to the Arctic coast. Flying weather, marginal VFR in store for all of the Panhandle tomorrow from Dixon Entrance right up to Chilkoot and White Pass, with IFR developing and expanding throughout the day here, Prince William Sound up into the southeast interior to the Alaska Range, areas of here forming over the Cook Inlet area and Kachemak Bay. Eastern Arctic coast could see some areas of IFR, and then VFR to the south with IFR out here with that system continuing to slip northwestward. We've got IFR pretty likely here, Nunivak Island, the Yukon Delta, the St. Lawrence Island, but improving over the Seward Peninsula. And then with that front elongating eastward, IFR at least getting as far east as Adak, with marginal VFR increasing across the eastern Aleutians, but should be a VFR day from the Pribilofs down across the Alaska Peninsula. For passes, Anatuvik, conditions becoming marginal on the southern approach, otherwise VFR. Same forecast for Adigan as well. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR. Rainy looking marginal. Windy VFR, and as moisture moves northward throughout the day, becoming marginal. Isabel, IFR. And Metaspa looks pretty marginal. Tanita, marginal. And for Portage again, for about the 4th, 5th day in a row, IFR. Chilkoot and White, occasionally marginal. Freezing levels at the surface right across the Bering Sea here between the Pribilofs and Nunivak Island, right up along the coast, and 2,000 feet up over south central Alaska, 4,000 feet in the Gulf of Alaska, on down across the Prince of Wales Island, Dixon Entrance area. Icing between 4,000 to 12,000 feet here. Light rime possible here along all of the southeast coast. Also that batch of that developing trough and increasing moisture here, Prince William Sound, the Kenai Peninsula, right up just about into the Tanana Valley, and then some more back out here with the low pulling back to the northwest, Nunivak Island up to St. Lawrence Island, then kind of a batch of moisture extending in or icing here into the northwest interior along the Brooks Range. Winds aloft showing the low with that next system coming up to the Panhandle, cutting the flow off a little bit. We no longer have that strong southeast flow, just a weaker branching out about 35 to 40 knots with this low shifting up to the northwest. And at 9,000 feet, still some pretty good winds with that. South 40 here over the southwest interior to east 40 on the extreme western Arctic coast, lighter over the eastern and southeast interior of the state. And then this low approaching from the southwest. Pretty good winds there. The Queen Charlotte's right up along the coastline, but light for the Gulf of Alaska. And then some southeast winds at about 30 knots here at 9,000 feet, increasing to 55 knots there north of Attu Island. 3,000-foot winds showing, again, stronger winds coming eastward here across the central Aleutians, and the strongest winds back to the northwest. Low pressure west of Cape Romanzoff. Pretty good winds around that 25 to 35 knots, and then 15 knots here for the eastern Arctic coast, getting pretty brisk out toward Cape Lisburne. Light and more variable over the southeast interior, and southeast winds 40 to 50 knots there just west of Prince of Wales Island. And there could be some moderate chop there from Port Alexander right on down across western Dixon Entrance there, but smooth for the northern southeast coast. A little bumpy with gusty northwest winds, Kamishak Bay down across the Barren Islands, maybe Fognak Island, but not too bad. Smooth over much of the interior. Occasional moderate chop there from about Point Lay down to Point Hope, and then also out to the west there over the Aleutians. And after hangar flying, I'll be back to look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. On behalf of Alaska Public Media, thank you for watching Hangar Flying. This evening, we are pleased to have Bernie Willis back on our show. Bernie has extensive knowledge and experience flying around Alaska as a general aviation pilot and also as a commercial pilot. He is the current president of Chapter 42 of the Experimental Aircraft Association. Bernie, welcome back to Hangar Flying.
Thank you, Mary.
On our last program, we were talking about some of the difficulties and challenges to keeping young people engaged in aviation and even getting them started. Do you want to continue on your thoughts?
Well, I think the cost of learning to fly is one of the significant factors. When I learned to fly, you could buy a brand new Cessna 182 for $13,000. Today, it's $500,000. A new automobile back then, for instance, a Chevy Impala, $3,500. Today, $30,000. So 10 times versus a huge, things are just not comparable. However, there are scholarships to get people started. A few years ago, when one of my sons went to college, the cost for his aviation education beyond the regular college was, I believe, $27,000. However, that's a lot of money, but it pays back. Mm-hmm. It does pay back if you stay in the field of aviation. That same son now is 34 years old, and he's making $140,000 a year. And he's not working for a major airline. So what was the $27,000 versus $140,000 a year? I mean, it's been a great investment.
Exactly, it's an investment in the future.
That's right.
So clearly you've done some great work in keeping your family involved in aviation and encouraging them. What advice would you give to somebody who is looking at starting a career in aviation?
I think the most important thing is to be willing to sacrifice for the present time so that you have the potential for a good future. I mean, live on rice and beans and cornbread until you can afford something else.
So that is great advice, and I think in order to kind of share some of your experience, what you seem to be doing is giving back to aviation and some of the things that you've loved and encouraging other people to find that same joy, whether it's in flying or building airplanes or controlling them or just being around aircraft. Can you talk about some of the opportunities that EAA has for giving back to aviation? One of the
special things that EAA has on a national level, which is translated to a local level, is the Young Eagles program. This is what this is all about. It's really taking kids for an airplane ride. There's some paperwork to be filled out, some liability releases and things that the parents will be responsible for. But other than that, there's no charge. And the people providing the ride provide their own airplane, their own fuel, and it gives an opportunity for a young person to see themselves into a new field, something that perhaps flying to Seattle or to Kotzebue or somewhere in a jet, you do not see. You're up at 30,000 feet. Many of us who flew at 30,000 feet for many years like flying at 500 feet to look at all the things we flew over but really couldn't quite see.
And as you mentioned before, that was kind of the defining point in your career when you went for an airplane ride when you were younger.
That's right. Being able to look at the world from a different perspective. And it's not just looking down, but it's looking up. It's looking at the sky and the clouds and the effects of everything that makes this world what it is.
Bernie, in wrapping up, I would like to know, is there any piece of advice that you would have to help pilots stay safe in Alaska?
Yes, there is. I would encourage them to ask themselves the question, what if? If the runway's long enough, if the stream is swift enough or too swift, is there a place to beach this float plane once I'm on the water? Is the presence of those lenticular clouds trying to tell me something about the wind up there? What if? If I do this and it doesn't work out, what is going to be the effect on not only me, but my family, my loved ones, the future? Is it worth it? What if?
That's great advice. And it's good to know that there are people like you who have the experience and the knowledge that are sharing that with future generations and with pilots that are just enjoying being around airplanes. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Yeah, thank you, Mary.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, thank you for watching Hangar Flying. If you enjoy the program, I encourage you to become a member of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. Membership forms are available at our website, www.aasfonline.org. If you're a pilot, don't hesitate to always stop and think, what if? Follow Bernie's advice. Until next time, fly safely.
Welcome back. Well, the sea ice analysis for today showing just about nothing in Bristol Bay here, and then the sea ice back up to about St. Lawrence Island. Really not a whole lot of change over the last several days, but the area, the forecast through Saturday, west of 170, which runs from the Pribilofs here right up to St. Lawrence Island. So this portion of the ice is expected to shift southward 20 to 35 nautical miles with more persistent northerly winds going on. This portion right here over the next couple of days will continue to compact back to the north, and then later in the week as the winds become more northerly, then it'll start to rebound a little bit and expand southward and a little to the west. Moving on to coastal winds forecast, 35 to 40 knots here for the south coast out of the southeast. Small craft advisories to the north becoming east of 25 for the north coast. Lynn Canal, Stevens Passage, north 25 knots, and then gales in the forecast here for Clarence Strait with 8-foot seas. And for Wednesday, south winds 25 to 30 knots on the south coast and southeast at about 30 here for the north coast, and then farther to the northeast 25. Small craft advisories continue. Lynn Canal down across Stevens Passage, and the southeast winds stay pretty brisk but not gale force winds for Clarence Strait. And for the North Gulf Coast tomorrow, small craft advisories for both the winds and the seas to 13 feet. Lighter winds for Prince William Sound out of the northeast, lighter yet for northern Cook Inlet. Small craft advisories, Kamishak Bay right down across the Barrens and Kodiak Island, but lighter in Shelikof Strait. For Wednesday, east at 20 for the North Gulf Coast, so definitely lighter here for this area. Light northeast winds for Prince William Sound and Cook Inlet, with northwesterlies continuing at 25 knots there for the Barren Islands and the east side of Kodiak Island. Out west, Bristol Bay, southwest 25 knots, lighter, more variable on the Pacific side of the peninsula. And then for Wednesday, everything shifts around to the east, increases to 35 knots from Castle Cape out to Cape Saracheff on the south side, small craft advisories on the north side, and coming down to 20 knots for Bristol Bay. So that's where it went. Okay, sorry about that. For the Aleutians, 35-knot gales here south of the Aleutians to the north, small craft advisories. North to northeast here for the central Aleutians at about 30 knots, and northeast to 20 for the western areas. And then for the southwest coast tomorrow, small craft advisories here, southwest winds with seas 9 to 10 feet. Westerlies pretty light for the Pribilofs, northeast 30 for St. Lawrence Island. Those winds become variable at about 20 or less, depending on where that trough ends up, with lighter south to southeast winds at about 20 for the southwest coast, southeast 15 for the Pribilofs. Arctic coast, east northeast 15 knots there, increased to 25 knots on the west side, and then we've got the gale force northeasterlies from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, and small brisk wind advisories to the south. Those drop off a little bit here on Wednesday with brisk wind advisories for the west side, winds lighter at about 15 knots from the east-northeast onto the east. And for tonight, trough right through here, keeps a chance of snow over the southeast interior all the way up to about Eagle. Dry mostly here through the central interior, definitely dry and less clouds from the north slope, with a chance of snow, some winter weather advisory here, St. Lawrence Island, Yukon Delta, anywhere from 1 to 4 inches of snow and gusty winds there, reducing visibilities, and that next front pushing in toward the central Aleutians. And then for tomorrow, more wind and rain here for the, especially the southern panhandle, with precipitation all the way up to the north. Kind of a developing trough condition here. Moisture increasing, chances of snow increasing here over south central Alaska, the Copper River Basin, even the North Gulf Coast. That pulls westward and probably maybe dropping some few inches of snow here over northern Cook Inlet and the western Susitna Valley, then pulls back to the west for another increase in snow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.